Hello world, welcome to a new video, and today I'm going to be answering just 3 comments that I came across as I was looking through my viewer statistics last week on my videos. If you do comment, I do try and respond to every single one of them, even if it's just a little heart to say that I've liked your comment and I've acknowledged it and I've read it, or if I've got a reply, I'll put a reply in as well. But I do read them all. Okay, so do comment on all my videos. And I'll tell you something, the reason why everybody wants you to put a comment on all of their videos is because it gets your videos further and further up YouTube's algorithm. And so more people get to see it, more people get to watch. And that's a nice thing, and that's good for me. Right, so these questions are from, I'm going to choose the hardest one to answer first. This comment comes from John Doe-NP3ZK, was made 10 days ago. You're going to save $100 and not get ND7 over ND5 for a P6, really? Now, I think long and hard before I try and recommend, at least amongst Rega's range of things. I don't really know much about, other manufacturers because I just love the Rega sound. And I try and think about proportions of budget to spend on various bits of equipment. And let's just start by looking at the P3 and the P6. And you'll notice that they have the same tone arm. It's the RB330 tone arm, which is about £415, I think, in the latest, July's price list anyway. So you don't really want to spend more than that on a cartridge for the tone arm, because you ideally, in any set of given circumstances, you want that cartridge or any piece of hi-fi equipment really to sound like it's just not working too hard, still giving you a fantastic sound, but you don't want it overworking, because then you will find that it will stretch into coarseness. The sound will stretch into coarseness. I found this with anything, that Name Naka 5 speaker cable that I go on about. The wrong amplifier choice. For example, having the Illicit R in the system that I've got it in now, as opposed to a few years ago when I deliberately decided not to buy the Illicit R because I knew that it was going to put a strain on my speakers and then they would go into coarseness. That could have been, and in fact it probably was, because the Illicit is a damn fine amp, but I just think that the synergy between the amp and the speakers wasn't quite there. Okay, the RS3s are Rega's basic floor standing speakers. They are less than half the price of the amp, and you just felt in a way that was totally different from the Osiris, where you thought the Osiris is a darn miracle that the thing sounds so good with speakers that are completely in the budget end, and you've got their reference amplifier and CD player, making them sound absolutely darned amazing. The Illicit R just said, upgrade your speakers. They cannot control the amount of bass that I am giving you. They go into brightness, they go into boominess or whatever. And so don't put an ND7 on an RB330 cartridge simply because it costs more. The ND3 on the RB330 tone arm in the P3 is appropriate, because the basic stock P3 is just a very simple motor that has been attached to the plinth. You've got a belt which you have to change yourself to adjust the speeds on it. The platter is a very basic rudimentary, it's a lovely platter, better than most, but it's still, as far as high-end audio is worth, it's still sort of on the more basic side of things. And so yeah, the ND3 at 175, I think it is. That is, appropriate. The ND5 would be working a bit too hard in that system, maybe not giving all that it's capable of doing, but the ND3 will sound fantastic. On the P6, which my learned friend John Doe, etc. and so forth is talking about, really, the ND5 is perfect. It's not more expensive than the tone arm. It's working with a much more advanced deck. All those features that I talked about, the motor, for example, is now in a separate power supply with 2 little buttons for 33 and 45. And it's making a far better job of controlling the speed. As I've said before, the P3 at its price point is accurate for speed, but you'll notice that as soon as you add the external power supply to either the P3 or buy it as done on the P6, and you'll find that the noise floor lowers and it suddenly becomes, even more rock solid. Beats get even groovier and funkier, for example. Pianos sound less warbly, that kind of thing. With the platter, I'll try and show you, actually, with my RP8. This is the side that you would place a record on, with a mat on the top, obviously. On the bass, you'll notice that the majority of the glass thickness is round the edge, and here we've got a second step down, as it were, where it's nearly as heavy and then it's lighter in the centre. The P3 is a solid thickness all the way. The P6 only has one step, the thick step here, and the P8, as I say, has got sort of 2 steps going down. And it's going by the principle that the majority of the weight should be around the edge, and there should be a gradient of weight distribution from the edge to the centre. All right. As I say, the P6 does it, but not quite as well as the P8 models. I'm not sure, really. I haven't seen. I should have looked when I was there, but I haven't seen the turntable of the new P8, but this is the RP8, as it were. It's the older one, but I presume that if there's a difference, it's going to be very slight on the new ones. Going with that sort of query again, I would say that the reason why the ND7 would be a good match, it wouldn't necessarily be the best match, but it would be a good match for either the P8 or the RP8, is simply because the tone arm is a much more refined tone arm, and it costs a lot more than the Cartridge. All right, don't spend more than the tone arm on the Cartridge. Where this gentleman got his $100 from, I think, is on the discount price between the packages. So there is a bundle where they'll bundle a P6 with a P5, they'll bundle a P6 with a P7, and there is, it's a value difference. You are getting a discount doing it that way. So when I'm talking about the price of this or the price of that, I'm talking about as individual items. Okay. Now, on a similar vein, I apologise, I did see it, I wasn't dreaming, but I can't find the comment that somebody made about the P3 Elise 2 combination being very bright. Now, that depends. I don't know anything about this person who made this comment. They could be someone who has had, 30 years of writing for a HIFI magazine, measuring all of the different cartridges and whatever, and having listened to a huge amount of very, very top end, many tens of thousands of pounds worth of system, and then concluded that the P3 was very bright. It could be that their ears, everybody's ears, and everybody perceives things slightly differently. One person might not be as sensitive to loud sounds as another person, for example. I don't think I am particularly sensitive to loud sounds. I used to be. As a child. I can remember blocking my ears when trains were coming into the station and stuff. I absolutely hated it. I was terrified. But where it's music, I'm better at it. So yeah, we've all got our own little foibles, and one person's bright is another person's dull. I would say that any of the reviews that I have heard or read, of the old outgoing Rega moving magnet range, is that compared to other cartridges of the same lineage and same price point, whatever, they are relatively dull. I don't mean dull in a bad sense. I mean that if he thinks that the Elise 2 with a P3 is bright, I can certainly remember the equivalent Autophon cartridge, the treble on the 2M Blue was really on the brighter side. So yeah, it's horses for courses in a way. But as I say, the reviews that I have read point to all of those cartridges as being slightly curtailed in the treble, a little more refined. I would say refined. It's what I've noticed myself. I haven't got the equipment here to measure it. As I say, I have not got years and years of having listened to very, very esoteric systems in, ideal circumstances or something like that. But if you're an ordinary hi-fi user and you find that something is bright or not, ask yourself a couple of questions. Is it bright only on a particular sort of few albums that you listen to? When I had the Marantz CD 72 or something CD player way back in the 90s, coupled with the new ABBA remasters that were coming out by the likes of John Astley and some bloke whose name I've completely forgotten, those particular CDs sounded far brighter and far brasher than I was used to listening to. Things improved when I finally upgraded to a Rega Planet CD player, but they took an even better turn when I changed my amplifier over, particularly when I moved to the Mira 3. And I have to say that the Mira 3, which is, I suppose, back in ye oldie days of yore, perhaps sort of more of an illicit style amp, more like my current Illicit R than the Alexa, for example. And in terms of tonal quality, more like that. So I would say that, again, per se, I have described the P3 with the Elise 2 cartridge as being like a mug of cocoa and a warm blanket. A mug of cocoa and a warm blanket in the Seychelles is going to be too much. But as I say, it's really nice and cozy and warm, I think. I've certainly found albums like Blue by Joni Mitchell, which on my Gold Ring GL75 first record player that I ever had as a hi-fi collector, it was a torturous album. It was one that you didn't really want to get to know because Joni Mitchell singing the song River is a very, very beautiful experience, but not on that record player, even with a Gold Ring cartridge on it. But certainly on the Rega with I think I had a bias or super bias or something cartridge that it came with, and then upgrading it to the Elise 2 was an improvement even over the previous bias or super bias, whatever I had. Anything can upset the balance of your system. But as I say, if it's just one or two records that you think, oh yeah, that's a bit torturous or whatever, perhaps your hi-fi is starting to do its job. Because really, a hi-fi should have no characteristics whatsoever. You should really be unaware of the hi-fi's presence. You should be starting to say, oh, that sounds like Glyn Johns has mic'd that drum kit up. Or that sounds like Rupert Hines' production, kind of thing. You should be able to perhaps start telling the differences between different synthesizers or guitars or whatever. You know, you should not be thinking, oh, my stylus, my record player, whatever. You shouldn't be thinking that, because it should all just move out of the way. If every single record that you put on your P3 with at least 2 sounds bright, could it be, given that the overall sort of public opinion on those moving magnet cartridges is that they are actually duller than the competition? I don't mean dull, I mean, you know, more refined, I suppose, less treble than the competition, slightly curtailed. Is your amplifier or is your cable, you know, needing attention? Okay, so it's a case of tweaks and stuff like that. Okay, so the third, and you'll be glad to know, final question that I want to respond to, if I can find my iPad to find it. John, another John, #HK2MQ, made 4 weeks ago. Wonderful long and extremely boring video, but thanks, I managed to fall asleep. Or to fall asleep. And a smile and laughter. I actually don't mind that comment at all, because there are videos on YouTube that I specifically put on to fall asleep to. I do get ASMR tingles, but it's never from any, or very rarely from anybody who labels a video ASMR, because what that means is that they're doing all this and all this stuff to make sort of squeechy noises, or they eat McDonald's or something like that, and it's just awful. And I find it's more of a wind up. I really find that people who are not intending to give you ASMR, not intending to get you to sleep, are really the best videos to watch. So I have a few, I have a handful that I put on, and I know that their effect on them is not intended to be relaxing and whatever, but it actually has that effect. And if I do that for you, John HK, whoever, then I'm pleased. I have done you a service, sir. And as you fall asleep, you might not know it, but your brain is still working. And as you fall into that REM sleep, you'll find that the stuff that is being poured into your brain from the video will churn around, and you'll wake up in the morning and you will actually remember quite a lot of what was being spoken about. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for all your comments, people. As I say, do remember to put comments in, and I'll do my best to respond to them. All right? Be kind. Be nice, though. Remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you ever so much for staying around. Bye.